Hello, guys. This is Jared Burry. He is an amateur bodybuilder and a personal trainer. He has a Bachelor of Science in Biochem Nutrition. In this episode, I ask him some important questions about training and nutrition. Let's get into it.
Yeah, so my name is Jared Burry. I grew up in a small town in central Newfoundland. Grew up playing a lot of sports, big focus on academics, so I guess you could say student athlete. So a little bit of backstory about me. When I was 12 years old, I was severely overweight. So that kind of led me down the road of understanding nutrition, training, and that also started my fascination with sports. So around that time, I started doing some research. Long story short, became a very good athlete in my own terms, I guess. Student athlete at my school, valedictorian, so I guess accomplished some things there. Volleyball, basketball, softball, ball hockey. So yeah, that also started my journey with weight training, just to be better at sports. So it wasn't really a case of I didn't know about bodybuilding yet. I just wanted to lift weights to perform better, look better, and that kind of brought me through high school. And then once I reached the end of high school, I had a decision to make with university. What did I want to do? Which led me down the path of understanding nutrition a little better, and then I said, why not make a career out of this? So that started my 4-year journey at Memorial University. I completed my 4-year degree in Biochem Nutrition with honor status, so I got to do some fun research there as well. And then here we are now. I've competed 3 times in amateur bodybuilding, twice here in Newfoundland, once in New Brunswick. And I own my own company called Team Transcendence. So I work with a variety of athletes, some in bodybuilding, a lot in powerlifting, strongman, you name it, mixed martial arts. I work with people in karate, even curling, all sorts of different sports.
Just regular clients?
Yeah, lifestyle clients as well. Obviously with the sports stuff, for example, like curling, there's not a whole lot of athletic ability required. So those clients, even still, it's more about overall well-being, which then correlates well with performance in curling, right? Clear mental state, better health, proper hydration, things like that. So yeah, that brings me to current day. So right now, all I do pretty much is I train. I'm in the off season right now, so no competing until 2026. Pretty busy. I do some personal training here at Reps Fitness, but aside from that, I'm pretty busy with the online clients for Team Transcendence.
You're full on coaching now?
Yeah. I'm up quite a bit with clients, full time with that. I'm here about 20 hours a week doing PTs. Just kind of gets me out of the house, working from home all the time. The only time I get to go out is go to the gym. So it's nice to interact with people like yourself, meeting people in the gym, building connections, further networking to build the business. So that's where I'm at right now. Yeah.
So first question I want to ask you is,
Sure.
So I was 400 pounds 3 years ago.
Right.
So if I came to you as a coach, so what would you say to me to get started?
To get things moving?
Yeah.
I would say the first thing I would say is to establish some short and long-term goals. My general rule of thumb is if you write it on paper, it's kind of like a contract. I even tell people to write it on paper and sign it. Because once it's signed, then it's a contract and you're more likely to follow it. Even, if you put goals on your phone, it's digital, right? Yeah. There's something about pen and paper. So that will basically lay your foundation. So what do I look to accomplish, say, in the next 3 months? And then what do I look to accomplish within the next, say, 3 years? So both short and long term. From there, you need to establish some routine, some structure. So that would be start small, if you're eating all over the place, maybe start with 3 meals per day, whole foods, just understand the fundamentals first. Start with some cardio, nothing too crazy. So as the saying goes, right, start as you begin to finish. So don't start too much because you won't be able to sustain that. So even something as simple as setting a step count, 10,000 steps per day. And if you're severely overweight, then that will get you pretty far.
Yeah, walking
is underrated, right?
It's underrated.
Yeah.
People, when it comes to bodybuilding, people think about like high intense workouts, fat diets, like going on 1,000 calories a day, but it's just simple walking and eating whole foods. Yeah.
In the simplest form, it's eat less, move more.
Yeah.
Right? So that would be the start. Would be to essentially establish some structure with your eating. Yeah. And that's why hiring a coach is beneficial because it gets your foot in the door. There's a lot of information out there with what to do and what not to do, but it's hard sometimes to understand what's right and what's wrong. Things like TikTok, Instagram, plenty of information, but some of it is not
stick to the
good,
routine.
sound information, right? It's just kind of what that individual did to accomplish that goal,
Yeah.
but it's not necessarily what's best for that person. Yeah, so let's start with establishing a routine with eating, establish some form of cardio, and then also weight training. What I've seen in the past with clients is people tend to really go hard with the cardio and then starve themselves.
Yeah.
And then what that leads to is muscle wasting.
Cut down all the carbs.
Exactly, cutting out carbs, things like
People
the
still ask me,
keto
you still eat
diet.
rice?
Yeah, right? And I prescribe my clients, like, if it agrees with you, some bread here and there.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh my God, bread is the end of the world, right? It's just understanding the fundamentals of things. So don't eliminate your carbohydrates. Just start with a calorie amount. Try that for a little bit.
Yeah.
If you're seeing some weight loss, at the beginning you're going to lose quite a bit, maybe 2-3 pounds a week, which
When
is
you're
normal.
big, you can eat a lot of food and lose weight. That's what I do.
Exactly,
You
yeah.
can eat 3,000 calories
Yeah,
and still lose
exactly.
like 3-4 pounds a week.
And another thing to consider too is if you're a natural athlete, no performance enhancing drugs, then what happens is as you starve yourself, your thyroid function depletes. So your metabolism actually slows down.
Yeah.
Which some people don't think about, right? And they wonder, sometimes people come to me and they'll be eating 1,000 calories per day, doing 2 hours of cardio and seeing no results. It's just because your metabolic rate is tanked, You're eating so little that your body's in starvation mode, so it's trying to survive. At some point, the weight will come down, obviously, if you starve yourself, it's inevitable, but the biggest problem is muscle wasting. So you don't want to be left in the situation where,
Too skinny.
right, you're what you call skinny fat, where you've now lost a lot of weight, but you have no muscle density. And the key to longevity is muscle tissue. If you look at any longevity studies, more muscle is correlated with longer life. So that will be the 3 big things. Firstly, establish a routine with eating, establish some structure with your cardio, nothing too crazy though, and then thirdly, start a weightlifting regime. Start light 3 times a week, and you can kind of build onto those 3 variables over time. I'm sure you've did a similar approach, right?
I only did cardio like first few months.
Yeah.
And then switched to like basic weight training.
Yeah, and what you
2 times a
understand
week.
too, like the laws of physics is mass moves mass. So if you're a larger individual, you're gonna be pretty strong to start with, right? And then you build some muscle tissue, and that also boosts confidence, which all plays into the mental state, right? The mind follows the body. So if you're in a clear mental state, you're feeling good, then you're more likely to see progress, right?
Putting on diet, right?
Yep.
So fixing the nutrition.
Yep.
So how do you put on a perfect diet that works for your clients? Like
How do I set that
you
up?
work with so many people, right? So
Right,
how
right.
do you?
Yeah,
like,
so a couple things to
make it-
consider. First thing would be the individual's lifestyle. So things like work. What do you do for work? Do you work from home? Are you working at an office? And that kind of then will dictate the food structure. Do you only have an hour to eat at work on your lunch break?
Yeah.
So that's the first preliminary steps, is understanding the individual's life. So how does your day look? From there, second thing to consider would be how many meals can that person eat realistically. And that also, a part of that is protein intake. This is up for debate, but you can only uptake so much protein per meal. So it wouldn't be wise for an individual to do 1 meal per day. Say if your body weight's 180 pounds, to do 180 grams of protein in 1 meal. Not going to work. You're going to run into indigestive issues. And the thing to remember too is just because you eat something doesn't mean it's being digested, right? It's not always that plain and cut. So once we've established the meals, so say an individual, most people tend to do 3 to 5 meals is comfortable with some snacking. So say we do 4 meals, then we would split the protein amongst those 4 meals. So say if an individual is 200 pounds, that would be 50 grams of protein per meal.
That's my kind of eat,
Exactly. So then we have the protein set, and now we have what's left will be the carbs and fats. So those are interchangeable. They're both fuel sources. So then we look at, okay, what time of day do you typically train? So say if an individual trains after meal 2, so then I would allocate more carbohydrates around meal 2 and 3, pre and post. That's when your insulin sensitivity is going to be the highest, so your ability to uptake that glucose is going to be the highest. Very minimal fats in those 2 meals, and then I would have more fats in meal 1 and 4. To set the day right, also some research with, obviously fats are the backbone of steroidal hormones, so your natural testosterone, those things.
Okay.
So if you
So
start...
you put less fat around the meals that
training.
you work.
Right. Fat slows down digestion a little bit.
Okay.
Last thing you want is some indigestion before you work out.
So what do you recommend take like around the workouts like? Pre-workout meal is
Yeah, so
oats.
yeah, oats would be okay. With oats, the fiber intake's quite high, so you'd
Yeah.
have to eat it far enough away from training so it's digested.
Okay.
Rice products are great. Cream of rice, regular rice. Protein sources for those are usually
Rice and chicken.
yeah, leaner protein sources. So chicken, whey protein, whatever you prefer. And then I do a little bit of fats because you also don't want to burn through too quickly. But it's not, say, like a ground beef meal, which would take quite a bit of time.
Yeah.
Maybe like a little bit of almond butter or something in there just to get enough to slow it down a little bit. And then fats in the last meal because you want to sustain that through the night. So you don't want to burn through that, wake up in the middle of the night hungry, especially if you're dieting, right?
Yeah.
And you're new to structured eating. That's, think about what the most likely time for you to binge would be. It's at night, right?
Yeah.
So you want to have enough nutrients at night as well to ensure that you're not starving in the middle of the night and you're going to go out and eat a full tub of peanut butter,
Yeah.
So it's just structured that way. You make sense of, once you understand macronutrients and when they're most valuable, then you can definitely understand when to place them in meals. But I would say that's kind of the overview of everything. Yeah.
Nice. About meal timing.
Okay, meal timing. Yeah.
Yeah, is it necessary? Because when I was on diet, like I prepare my meals because I go on university, and then go to gym, and then go to like long shift.
Yeah.
So I eat whenever I get the
Yeah.
chance to, like, when it's busy. But I get my meals in throughout the day somehow.
Yeah.
So I think getting the calories in is the important thing. But what was the perfect?
I'm kind of in the same thought process as you, especially right now. Like, I'm here at the gym. I could have 3 appointments in a row. Then I could have something to do. So, the grand scheme of things, you want to just make sure you're getting all the calories in.
Yeah.
Now, what would be the most ideal situation?
Yeah.
Would be evenly spaced meals.
Yeah.
But for most people, that's near impossible.
Yeah.
And I would say not to let that become a problem in your head.
Yeah.
Don't think
That's
because
the thing.
it's not
Just-
perfect that it's useless. So meal timing is important. I would say starting your day with some food sets the tone for the rest of the day. You've probably noticed, say, you sleep in a little bit, and then meal 1 is pushed till noon, and then meal 2 is pushed further and further and further,
Yeah.
and then you're up until 3 in the morning trying to eat your food,
Yeah.
and then that's a vicious cycle, right? Because
Yeah.
the next day you're going to sleep in. So as hard as it is, I would say wake in the morning, drink some water,
Yeah.
get some movement that will stimulate digestion, eat meal 1, and then that will structure your day. The only other variable to consider would be with protein intake. You don't want to go too long without any amino acids in your
Yeah.
bloodstream, obviously. So I would say ideally, if you can eat it depends on how many meals you're eating as well, but I would say every 3 to 5 hours.
Yeah.
Once you exceed 5 hours, you run the risk of going catabolic, meaning that your body it's not anabolic, so there's breakdown, not
Yeah.
building.
So how much protein can we digest in one meal? Like 50 grams?
Yeah, there's some new research to suggest that there's no upper limit, but I don't really believe that. The thing to understand with research is it's so many variables and ever changing, right? You've seen that with training. Like,
Yeah.
10 years ago, how we train is different than how we train now. I would say my ideal would be about 50 grams per meal. I've pushed it to about 70 per meal. Say if I have a busy day and I usually eat 6 meals and I have to get that down to 5 because of scheduling, I would do 70 per meal. Just my body weight's so high. But yeah, definitely try to structure it in a way that you're able to eat incrementally, and it'll just help you stay with the routine as well, right? But like you had said, some days don't allow that, and it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
The bigger picture is consistency over time, right?
Yeah.
So if
Get
you're
your
able
meals
to,
correctly
yeah, absolutely.
throughout the day.
Yeah.
And some people think if you eat around night, you will get fat.
No, that's
there's a lot of
completely
things,
untrue.
Yeah, untrue.
I read
There's calories in it.
like a TikTok doctor, just a normal medical doctor, which has no real experience with metabolism, right? Suggests that basically our metabolism shuts off at night, but if your metabolism shuts off, we die.
Yeah.
At any given time, our cells are churning, right?
Yeah.
There's metabolic processes going on every single
They
minute
try
of
to
every day.
say something to get views and
Exactly,
Yeah.
something that's extreme,
Yeah.
right, to get a response.
yeah.
The only downside to eating late at night would be perhaps it will mess with your sleep a little bit if you're too full.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. Like, I don't like to eat like too close to my
Yeah.
bedtime.
Exactly.
It screws up my sleep.
And then it kind of carries into the next day. All that undigested food, you're
Yeah.
not really hungry in the morning then, right?
Yeah.
Which is kind of...
And it could still in your system and it could up your scale in the morning.
Exactly, or it could be an inaccurate reading.
Yeah.
The ideal situation, I would say, like hour and a half, 2 hours before bed. That's a safe bet. Food, depending on the food, obviously it takes a little time to digest, about an hour and a half.
Yeah.
So if you kind of go to bed feeling satiated and full, but not bloated, that would be the goal. Then you can wake up the next day and then repeat that routine. Start eating in the morning and then work your way through the day.
And so let's go into the training part.
Sure.
So how do you set up a training plan for a client that wants to lose the weight?
Lose weight? It wouldn't really differ that much from someone who wants to gain muscle. Because the end goal, obviously you can't build a lot of muscle in a deficit, but the end goal is always to build muscle. So the first question for the client would be, again, kind of lifestyle scheduling. Like how many times do you think is reasonable for you to get in the gym? And then I would dictate the training split based on that. So let's say a person can only get here 3 times a week, then I would probably do a push-pull legs. So we're hitting all the muscle groups. 4 times a week I might do like an upper-lower split.
So 2 days upper, 2 days lower.
Yeah, so two training days in a row, 1 day off, 2, and then the weekend off. If you're more advanced, you know, like say like myself, someone who's trying to grow a lot of muscle in the off season, then I would do 5 training days a week. And then as the person gets more advanced, you can kind of get more picky with the training. In terms of like maybe I want to hit hamstrings twice a week, you know, weaknesses, if you're competing and things like that.
You want to grow your arms.
Exactly. You might want to train more frequently, but always 2 rest days. I would never, at least 2 rest days away from weight training. You know, if like I know you run and stuff, you probably do some running on your rest days, things like that.
Today I ran.
Exactly. So things we would call more that like active recovery. The muscles, aside from your legs and stuff, is not experiencing a whole lot of fatigue.
So I do my long runs on Sundays. So I push my leg days like midweek.
Exactly.
That's good. And so how do you set up the rep ranges?
Rep ranges?
And sets?
Most
people think go lightweight, high ranges, low. So it's a very debatable thing.
So the common thought process is that if you're trying to lose weight, you would do lighter weight.
Lighter weight, more reps.
More reps. Which you're not really burning that many calories in training. You're getting more of that from the cardio. That's the goal with cardio, is to get expenditure, to burn calories. With training, your only priority should be building muscle tissue. So I don't want to say heavy load because I'm not a believer either that you should be doing 6 to 8 reps. I personally think you should be good at every rep range.
Like 12?
12 to 15. Even my leg training sometimes goes to 20. Leg press, things like that.
How many sets?
Usually 2 sets of everything. It depends on let's say how long the person's been in the gym as well. So someone like me and you, we might be able to recognize that what it feels like to go to complete failure. Or close to there, right? In terms of, because it's a mental game, right? Like it starts to hurt and then people usually stop, but really you have about 5 more. So once you start to refine your understanding of training, you can reduce your sets just because you know now what it feels like to reach failure. For me, I do 2 sets of pretty much everything. I wouldn't be able to do a third because I'm too fatigued.
I used to do like 8 to 12, like 4 sets. In the beginning.
Which is kind of the old thinking, right? You know, we talked about research changing, and 3 sets is common too.
6 is common?
So, but however, if I start working with a new client in the gym in there, I'll get them to do 3 sets. Just because they don't have
and
a couple warm-ups. So we'll do what's called a warm-up, so very lightweight, and then a feeder set, which we close probably about 75% of
let's assume you're doing like, what, chest press?
So
like chest press, you start with like 40 for warm-up.
So say if I can do 90 pounds, so 2 plates per side, I would do 1 plate per side for probably 8. Get the connection, understand what I'm trying to do here. And then set 2 might be 1 in the 25, but this is what you call your feeder set. So it's close to the working weight, but still not working. That set might be 4 to 6. Again, I'm just getting my nervous system.
So you'll work your way up to the...
But don't make the mistake of doing 15 reps for your warm-ups because you're burning a lot of energy, right? So it's as the weight increases leading up to your working weight, reduce the amount of reps. For example, a good example of this is like deadlifting. Say if you can deadlift 5 plates per side, you wouldn't do 15 all the way up to 15 reps with 3 plates, 4 plates. Because by the time you get to your working set, you've already done a lot of work. You're pretty much fatigued, right? So when working with powerlifters, you see this, like they would do maybe 8 reps with 1 plate, 6 with 2, 4 with 3, 2 with 4. So the reps go down as the weight goes up, and then their working sets could be sets of 8 at 500 pounds by plates. But that's how I generally set it up. But to loop back to what I was saying in the beginning is, if you're a novice and you're not used to what it feels like to go to failure, then I would prescribe more sets. Just because the workload is more than if you were to do 2, because you don't understand how to feel with the 2, so at least we're getting something out of that. Eventually, once that person graduates to a point where they understand what it feels like to get close to failure, then I would pull it back to 2 sets. Yeah.
So it's same for every...
For most muscle groups. Things like arms and side laterals, shoulders, they can tolerate a little more volume.
Yeah.
But heavy presses, leg press, hack squats, heavy rows, things like that would be 2 sets. Yeah.
So low weight, high rep range is like old.
It's an old thinking, yeah.
So every kind you suggest is 2 working sets?
Mostly for anybody who's, I would say, intermediate to advanced, I rarely prescribe 3, unless it's like I said, maybe a tricep push down, a curl, a muscle that you would use less weight on, typically, right? You're not going to full stack a curl, even if you can. You're probably not going to do that. The tendons are smaller, frailer muscles, more likely to tear. Big legs are big muscle groups, so you're able to heavier load, and I would say 10 to 15 reps for leg work is where I sit mostly. 8's a little low, 10 is kind of, okay, now I'm really starting to feel this, and by 15 I'm done. So that's kind of where I sit with that.
2 sets, like 8 to 15.
We'll say 8 to 15, that's kind of the range I usually do.
Yeah. Other than that, you're just wasting your energy.
I agree. Yeah, I think so. Because it's, the rep range, if you look at the hypertrophy studies with growing muscle tissue, it shows that you can achieve muscle growth anywhere from 6 to 30 reps.
Oh, okay.
So as long as you approach close to failure. So we understand that. Now we have to understand what's the most ideal situation. So either I can do X weight for 6 reps, which is probably going to be really hard on my body. My central nervous system is going to be really taxed. It's going to be really heavy and hard. Or I can do much lighter weight and do 30 reps, but I'm going to be in the gym for 5 hours. So what's the best formula? It's usually somewhere in the middle. So we'll say 8 to 15. That's kind of right in the middle.
2 sets.
2 sets and you're done.
So how many exercises is ideal for it?
So we'll say
you're training like back.
So not including the biceps, just a full back day. I'll probably do. We'll do probably only 1 back day a week. I'll do 5 exercises, so 10 working sets. That's it. Yeah.
I see. Like not too many workouts.
No, I do. My workouts are about an hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah, me too. Like.
Yeah, people think people come to me, my new clients who have no exposure to training. They say, "Well, you must be in the gym 4 hours a day, right, to look like that." It's like, I'm here probably less than you are. Most of my time when I'm getting in shape is cardio. Yeah, that's depending on where I'm at in prep, but hour and a half, 2 hours, sometimes. That's where the real work is done. The training should be short, aggressive, to the point, get it done, and focus, right? You can burn a lot of wasted time by just sitting around on your phone and,
So do you work with any endurance athletes?
I work with some CrossFitters, which you would call that, I guess.
Yeah.
It's a hybrid sport, so it is endurance. I've worked with a guy who ran like a shorter marathon.
Okay.
So I've worked with those people.
So how do you make a training plan with endurance athletes and the bodybuilders?
So how is it different?
Yeah.
So with endurance athletes, the biggest priority is fueling the race or the run.
Yeah.
So a lot more focused on, you would carb load them, say if a person has a race on Saturday, start feeding up from Wednesday to Saturday, more carbohydrates, reduce protein, more carbohydrates, and then race day, they pretty much eat no protein at all.
How's the training?
Training, I don't really do any of their training, it's just nutrition.
Oh.
So their training, they do some weight training, but I know most of it is just adjusting to the distances of running, right?
Yeah.
As you probably know, that's half the battle is pacing yourself and not getting ahead of yourself, right? But in terms of nutrition, it's very straightforward. It's during the race, it's very quick carbohydrates. Yeah. If you can store carbs earlier in the week, that will save you a lot. A lot of people run into digestive issues. Yeah. There's even some cool research on, I don't know if you've heard about this, but carbohydrate rinsing. Yeah. So you could drink a Gatorade, you can swish it around your mouth and spit it out.
Okay.
So your mouth has the ability to uptake a little bit of carbohydrates.
Oh.
So some people who experience kind of feel that water slosh around your stomach,
Yeah.
to avoid that, they actually swish the carbs around and they spit it out.
Oh.
So things like that, but it's primarily gels and a little bit of fats to sustain the energy, but nothing that's going to cause them issues while running.
I'm prepping for a marathon.
Oh,
it's
okay,
a
for a marathon, yeah.
20-week marathon prep.
Yep.
So there's a lot of long runs and
Right.
stuff involved, speed training. So how do you put them into like gym training session?
For gym training?
Yeah.
I would say for those people, most of the work is actually done way before the race. So what we call the off season.
Yeah.
I would actually reduce training quite a bit leading into the races, just because you want to keep your joints fresh.
Yeah.
Things like training a hard leg day before a race, probably not the best move.
Yeah.
And that kind of plays into the carb loading as well. When you had competed, right, the week before the competition, you didn't train.
Yeah.
So you want your joints to be fresh and all that glucose to uptake in the muscle. So again, I haven't really worked with too many people who just nutrition. I haven't done many who I've done training with, but again, I have a couple. In those cases, I work with them in their off season.
Yeah.
So the objective then would be to put on some muscle tissue. They have their own coaches for, we'll say like plyometrics and endurance and things like that, but it would just be normal training in the gym.
Yeah. That's what I'm trying. Like I'm into running a bit.
Yeah.
So it's sometimes hard to get the balance.
Right.
Running and weight
In training, yeah. I did actually discover that when I was in high school, because I was playing a lot of sports. My practices would be between the 4 sports. I'd have pretty much 4 hours a day of practice, and then trying to work out at the same time. And I would train legs before practice, and I would have 4 hours of practice.
Yeah.
So not only was I depleted from the training, and then I was depleted for 4 hours after, and by the last practice I was just dead.
Yeah.
It is a fine balance. I think the only way to find the right formula is trial and error, and then once you find it, just keep it structured that way, so you know then what to expect. Yeah.
Do you think that endurance sports like running will cause muscle loss?
In the bodybuilding world, like there's a lot of bodybuilders who won't do cardio in the off season because the objective is to see the scale go up. And running, I'm not sure. I think if your calories are adequate enough, then no. In protein, yeah. I don't think you will see any muscle wasting. The only thing is for bodybuilding, the struggle in the off season is usually eating enough.
Yeah.
And you're now going to have to eat a lot more with the expenditure, right?
But it's normal for like normal people.
Yeah, absolutely. Like for example, like CrossFit, for example, I tell people like if you're looking for health and longevity, something like that where you have a blend of endurance, weightlifting, kind of will develop. I mean, the competition is called the fittest on earth, right?
Yeah.
So that will develop someone who is kind of ready for any situation. You know what I mean?
I bought this Red Bull.
Yeah.
So how bad it is?
How bad is that Red Bull?
Yeah. How bad the artificial
sugars?
Yeah.
Okay. So with the artificial sugars, people kind of demonize them, but if you actually look at the research would suggest that they're actually not that bad. And I've done a lot of papers in university about sucralose and aspartame and those sort of things.
Yeah.
Pretty much the most common ones. And most of the research I found and that my professors had told to me was that for us to experience any sort of detrimental health impacts from that, we would have to consume quite a bit. So you're talking like a case. Let's use Diet Pepsi, for example, because it has no caffeine. Obviously, consume a case of that, you're probably going to have a heart attack. We'll say diet drink, for example.
Yeah.
You would have to consume about 16 of those per day to see any sort of doubt.
Yeah.
All the studies are done on rats, so that's the problem. Rodent data does not correlate to human data.
Yeah.
We're not rats, we're humans. So what they do in these research studies, and they're usually funded by, like, let's say, a company who really hates diet drinks. It's like Coca-Cola, right? Full sugar drinks. So what they'll do is they'll take these rats that weigh 1 kilogram and give them, like, enough to kill a human. And it killed the rat. Well, like, of course it did. Like, if that was grams per pound for us, like, correlated with our body weight, we would have no impacts. So long-term research suggests there's no problems, and the only downside is true is that you might see some issues with basically your gut microbiota. So the distribution of bacteria in your stomach. You have good bacteria and bad bacteria.
Yeah.
What they've seen is an overgrowth of the bad bacteria. Just because the bacteria can feed off of the artificial sugars, so they thrive. You see similar cases though in people who are obese and eat poor diets. The overgrowth of bacteria is not uncommon. So my recommendation would be to consume. You'll be fine with 1 or 2 a day, no issues.
Yeah, no issues.
Yeah, and especially in a deficit setting where you're dieting, and a sugar-free sweetened drink is the only sweet thing you get in your day. I think it would be more beneficial to do that than to binge later in the day on something you're not supposed to have, right?
Switching to Diet Coke or diet anything, you will like save a lot of calories.
Yeah, and absolutely,
and a lot of sugar cravings.
Yeah, and things like a lot of people who come to me with diabetes, it's rarely from food. It's usually from sugary drinks.
Sugar drinks.
Yeah, and that was actually the backbone of my thesis I did. We ran experiments in rats where we fed rats different amounts of high fructose corn syrup. So that's what's the sugar composition in a soda. Yeah. That's what it is.
It's like Coke has 40 grams.
Yeah, of sugar. So it's all from high fructose corn syrup.
Yeah.
So we did 15% of diet, 30% of diet, I think it was 50% of diet. But we fed all the rats the same amount of calories. Okay. So we supplemented, say if the rat had more high fructose corn syrup, we fed it equal amount of normal food. So all their calorie intakes were standardized. The only thing that was different was the amounts of fructose they consumed. What we found was actually there was no big impact directly correlated with the fructose. It was more correlated with the obesity of the rats. Yeah. So all 3 groups experienced the same health impacts despite having different amounts of fructose. So the bigger variable to think of it actually is levels of obesity and trying to reduce, because it's all metabolic disease, right? Yeah. Things like blood pressure, diabetes, all these things are interconnected. If you have one, you usually have them all, right? But yes, you can, to go back to the diabetes story with clients, and I actually went through this with my father recently. He went and got blood work done and he was pre-diabetic. Yeah. And I told him to stop drinking sugary drinks, and his blood sugars are now back to normal without making any sort of dietary changes, aside from the sugary drinks. Okay. So it's definitely something you should avoid, and if it means drinking a sugar-free drink versus a full sugar drink, I would rather take the negative impacts of a sugar-free.
Some people say your blood still spike your insulin.
No, so I did studies on that too, actually, or papers. So we compared actually the difference between sucralose and monk fruit. So monk fruit is a natural sweetener, kind of like stevia, and both had no impact on blood sugar of diabetics. Okay. Yeah.
That's good. Are there types of sweeteners? We have different types of sweeteners. Like, are they
any different?
Like aspartame, sucralose?
No, the main ones aren't terrible. The things I would avoid though are the sugar alcohols. Yeah. So like xanthol. They're usually found in protein bars a lot. Yeah. So, and like not in Red Bulls, but you ever see like those really big like C4 drinks you can get sometimes at supplement stores? Yeah. They're really full of the artificial sweeteners that are called sugar alcohols. They have a much larger impact, not really on your overall health, but with stomach distribution or bacteria distribution. Okay. They will really cause an upset stomach. So if anything, avoid those, but little amounts of sucralose.
Yeah, Red Bull doesn't have it.
No, it shouldn't have any sugar alcohols.
Okay, so that's something we should look into, sugar alcohol.
Yeah, sugar alcohols, definitely. It's in a lot of low sugar snacks, drinks. It's really sweet, so they include it to mimic the taste and stuff. And that's another thing too I want to touch on.
Aspartame is okay, right?
Aspartame is okay, but like with consuming snacks that are advertised as low calorie, just take a look at the ingredients list. Yeah. If the ingredients list is this long, like you're probably better off having the alternative that might be a little bit higher in calories. You know?
Have the regular wrap.
Yeah, have the regular wrap, or I see it all the time with like muffins and stuff. Like, or probably just don't eat muffins, period. But like, you know, if it's a list, it's kind of the same argument with vegan meats versus normal meats, right? Yeah. You look at the ingredient list on a vegan meat and it's 20 characters long versus beef, which is beef. Yeah. I understand if it's for moral reasons with, you know, killing the animals and whatnot, but if you think that's any better for you, then you're totally wrong.
What are your thoughts on Ozempic and the weight loss drugs? They say what, GLP-1?
Yeah, the semaglutide ones. So Ozempic has its use. So if you're someone who is actually diabetic, it can be very beneficial reducing your diabetes and reversing it. If you're using it for a weight loss aid, you're using it for the wrong purposes. It's become more popularized like any other pharmaceutical drug Initially, it was preserved for people only who have diabetes,
Yeah.
and now you're seeing it. Even I know people within my family who are not diabetic, just overweight,
Yeah.
and they say, "Well, I'm going on Ozempic now." The problem with these drugs are that, firstly, it kills your appetite. You have to force yourself to eat.
I heard like you don't get any hunger.
No,
throughout the
and
day.
when you do eat, you end up puking it up. So that's a problem, right? So we talked about earlier about muscle wasting and all that.
Yeah.
If you can't eat, you're not going to preserve your protein.
Yeah.
And we had also talked about how that leads to kind of being skinny fat, right?
Yeah.
You have no muscle density, and now you still have some excess weight. So that's the situation you run into. And then what happens when you stop? Your hunger is unsatiable.
Yeah.
So you're going to eat all that weight back,
Yeah,
right?
you don't build a lifestyle around
Exactly.
food. Yeah, you don't know anything.
It's I don't want to call it a fad because it has merit, but it's not something you should do with the expectation that it's going to be sustaining for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
The perfect situation would be if you were to take it while making lifestyle changes.
Yeah.
Take it for a very short period of time until the diabetes is gone,
Yeah.
and then switch over to
Yeah.
doing what you
Just
should
do a normal diet, hit
Yeah.
your protein goal, and
Yeah.
if you're still starving, just try it.
Yeah, and as we had mentioned,
I don't think so. You'll be starving if you're eating correctly.
Yeah, no,
Slight deficit.
and you can even, I mean, some people have a difficult time losing weight, even with structure, with nutrition, training, and all that. But give it a good stab. Take some time. You know, it's not going to happen overnight.
Yeah.
It's going to take months, years. So stick with it. Keep doing what you're doing, and results will come.
Complete lifestyle change.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So what type of supplements will you take from morning to night?
So I use like a greens powder from Jack Factory, glutamine, primarily for just gut health.
Greens powder is good.
In my opinion, it's low on the priority list. I use it because I get it for free with Jack Factory,
Yeah.
but if I had a hierarchy of, okay, I only have $100, what should I buy?
Yeah.
It would not be at the top of my list. So throughout the course of the day, obviously whey protein, some pre-workout occasionally, essential amino acids from time to time during training, or if I have a long period of time without eating, I'll use those just to get some amino acids in my blood. And then health supplements, I take a lot of those. N-acetylcysteine, which is NAC, it's a precursor for glutathione, so it's a potent antioxidant. It's a whole lot of science, lumbo jumbo, but it's actually tried and true. It's a good one.
So what it does? Like,
So it's a potent antioxidant, so removing free radicals. So obviously I'm an open bodybuilder, hormone use, all that stuff.
yeah. To enhance for sure.
Yeah, so it's just a great way to ensure that the kidneys are functioning properly, the liver, so it removes free radicals from the organs. Coenzyme Q10, which is more of a heart one.
What are just regular ones we should get? Like
Just
one-
normal.
Yeah.
I would say high quality omega-3. If, like I said, with the $100, that would be number one on my list.
Yeah.
One that's derived from small fish. So
Yeah.
if you think about heavy accumulation of heavy metals, hence why they say not to eat a lot of tuna, because it's a big fish.
Yeah.
So small fish like anchovies, mackerel, herring, they feed directly on algae. So there's no accumulation of heavy metals.
Okay.
So one I use is called Nutri-C. So
Where do you get it?
you
The
can
one in Costco is good.
the capsules.
Yeah.
Depends, but I've never looked at the breakdown of it, what it's derived from.
Yeah.
But a couple things to look for in a fish oil. If it smells fishy, or you burp it up and it tastes fishy, it's not a good quality one. So the Nutri-C is liquid, and I drink it. It has no flavor.
Okay,
It's
when
just
you drink it.
yeah, it's just pure EPA and DHA, which are the omega-3 fatty acids.
Yeah.
So an omega-3 would be the top of the list,
Yeah.
and then here, especially in Newfoundland, a vitamin D3.
Yeah. something.
Even in the summer, on the sunniest day, we don't get enough sun exposure. So a good dose of that with K2.
D3 and K2
K2.
comes together. Huh?
Yeah, they come together usually, so that the D3 uptakes the calcium,
Yeah.
and then the K2 acts as basically a carrier to bring it to bone.
Okay.
There's some studies with D3 use and basically the calcification in arteries. So it uptakes the calcium, but it settles in the arteries and doesn't go to the bone, which calcification in arteries is heart disease, which you don't want. Yeah. So those would be the main ones.
Yeah.
Magnesium, there's a couple different ones. Glycinate's good form. 3-in-8's one if for more brain function. Magnesium citrate would be more for digestive stuff.
Yeah.
Basically draws water into the
Citrate is
digestive
more
tract.
for digestion.
Yeah, it pulls water into the
Yeah.
digestive tract, so your stool will be a little bit better passing through. But the one I use is glycinate. It's kind of the standard one that serves purposes as well.
Yeah. And anything for sleep?
No, I sleep well. I mean, I wear a CPAP because I have sleep apnea.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you use it? Like,
So the CPAP is it stands for constant positive air pressure.
okay.
So basically, when I sleep, what happens is I stop breathing.
Yeah.
Chest heavy, so all that volume goes up in my neck,
Yeah.
and I stop breathing. So I had to do a test for that. I think they said I stopped breathing 9 times an hour, which is not even that severe. So basically, the positive air pressure shoots air out of a hose, moist air, that keeps going down my throat, my esophagus, well, not my esophagus, into my lungs. So it keeps my lungs open.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a lot of people, especially bodybuilders.
Through mouth.
Yeah, so it's a full face mask. So below your
okay.
face, there's a tube that connects into a.
I've seen some people
Yeah,
put on a.
You can do a mouth one or a nose one as well.
Some people do like tape their mouth.
Yeah, they tape their mouth.
Is it effective?
Yeah, so there's some studies with mouth breathing, and our mouths are designed for eating, not breathing.
Yeah.
So your mouth is more so like the secondary breathing mechanism. Your nose is the main one, your nasal passage. So yeah, some people tape their mouth shut to force themselves to breathe through their nose
Yeah.
and to prevent snoring, right? Yeah.
All right. That's it for today's video. Thanks for coming.
Thank you
A lot
for
of
having me.
information.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so yeah.
Yeah, so my Instagram, personal Instagram is JaredBurry00.
Yeah.
Coaching page is Team Transcendence. I'm not really active on anything else. Instagram mainly.
Just
Yeah, well, TikTok, but I don't really post on there. Yeah, it's been banned. And
yeah,
so,
US and
yeah.
and the sad part is they banned CapCut too.
Yeah, CapCut, yeah.
Yeah.
I think you can download a VPN though, and you should be able to get it back.
Yeah, but sad.
It's sad.
Yeah.
It's terrible for the people who use it, on
Yeah.
TikToks, but the American people who advertise and who have a big following,
the people who build a livelihood on it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think they're getting paid for this content.
Oh, really?
In US, I think it's
For
monetized.
TikTok? Yeah, it's monetized, yeah. You get paid well.
We don't here. Sad.
You gotta have a lot of views and followers, though, I think, to get
Yeah.
monetized.
Okay, that's it.
All right.
Thank you for watching. Yeah.